El Salvador, a country once known for its terrifying crime rates and gang violence, has undergone an insane transformation, from being the highest murder rate capital in the world to the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. But how did this change happen in just 3 years, and what role did Bitcoin play in this transformation? Today, I'll tell you the incredible story of how President Nayib Bukele took El Salvador from chaos to calm, and why his vision could be a blueprint for other nations to follow. For decades, El Salvador was synonymous with violence and fear. The rise of gangs in El Salvador is deeply rooted in the country's dark history, particularly its civil war from 1979 to 1992. The war, fought between the military-led government versus the leftist guerrilla groups Farabundo Multi-National Liberation Front, FMLN, left the nation scarred with deep social, economic, and political divisions. During the conflict, thousands of Salvadorians fled to the United States, especially to Los Angeles, where many young immigrants faced poverty, discrimination, and violence. In response, some of these youths formed gangs like MS-13 and Barrow 18, initially as a means of self-protection in the tough urban environments. But after the war, the US began deporting Salvadorians with criminal records, including gang members, back to El Salvador. These deportations fueled the growth of gang culture in a country already destabilized by the war's aftermath. With weak institutions and widespread poverty, the returning gang members quickly established their power, leading to a rise in violence and criminal activity in El Salvador. The gangs took control of many neighborhoods, engaged in extortion, drug trafficking, and violence, making El Salvador one of the most dangerous countries in the world. This legacy of violence and instability set the stage for the significant challenges that one man would later address with his aggressive leadership.
If you have 100% poor young people joining the gangs, that's a social problem, 100% social problem.
Enter Nayib Bukele, a young, dynamic leader who promised to break the past and deliver real change. Bukele's journey began as a mayor of San Salvador, where he gained a reputation of getting things done. But his ambitions were much bigger. In 2017, after breaking away from the traditional political parties, Bukele founded Nuevas Ideas, a new political movement with a bold vision to transform El Salvador into a safe, prosperous, and modern nation. Bukele reflected on the challenges he faced when he took office.
In the 80s, the war. You had a fight with the Soviet Union, had nothing to do with us. What did you do? You financed El Salvador to fight a war between us. And we killed each other, and 85,000 Salvadorans died. After that, 1 million displaced. They went to the US, into ghettos. They formed the gangs, then they deport the gangs. Gangs come here. You send us another recipe. Don't arrest minors. Okay, but all the gang members were minors at the time. So gangs grew, and then they terrorized the country. They started killing people, and we became the murder capital of the world. Nobody could solve it. We took the recipes from the OAS, we took the recipes from the UN, we took the recipes from the European Union, we took the recipes from the United States. None of the recipes worked. More bloodshed, more people were dying.
He spoke about how El Salvador had long followed the Western recipe for governance, adopting policies recommended by the Organization of American States, the United Nations, and the European Union. Yet, despite following these guidelines, El Salvador saw little improvement in the quality of life for its citizens. Corruption persisted, violence remained rampant, and economic growth was stagnant. Bukele realized that continuing on this path would lead to nowhere, so he decided to take a different approach, one that would require quick, decisive, and sometimes controversial actions.
Of all the countries in the hemisphere, El Salvador seemed close to the bottom in the rankings for everything.
Yes.
If you can fix El Salvador, what are the lessons for the rest of us? What did you do first?
You cannot do anything if you don't have peace, right? And when I say peace, I include war, civil wars, invasion, crime. I mean, you need to have peace. You need to be able to move freely, to have your basic rights respected, starting with the right to live, the right to move, the right to have property. So we had to start with peace. And in the case of El Salvador, we were literally the murder capital of the world.
Yes.
And we turned it into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. We're safer than any other country in the Western Hemisphere, which is, it was, if I would have said that 5 years ago, they would say that I was crazy, right?
Bukele launched an unprecedented crackdown on gangs, deploying the military and doubling down on the police force to restore order. He expanded prisons, implemented strict security measures, and gave law enforcement the resource they needed to dismantle the criminal networks that had terrorized the nations for decades.
It looks like a sea of skin and tattoos. These images released by El Salvador's government shows the transfer of about 2,000 inmates, stripped to their shorts and with their heads shaved, to what's been dubbed the country's new mega-prison.
The results were nothing short of extraordinary. By 2024, El Salvador's murder rate had plummeted and the country had become the safest in Central America. For the first time in years, Salvadorians could walk the streets without fear, businesses could thrive, and communities can rebuild. Bukele's strategy had worked, but it came with risks.
Thousands are now behind bars and the country is transforming before people's eyes, but there is a dark underside that's hidden from view. Human rights groups are dismayed,
causing outrage amongst human rights activists who say only around a third of those held in prison have links to gangs.
Bukele's actions, while effective, didn't align with the expectations of the international community.
I told a member of the European Union, you take your best government, same people, same talent, same experts, same will to do things the right way. You take your best government and you put him to govern Afghanistan and tell them, okay, you govern Afghanistan the same way you govern this European country. They'll be dead in a week because you cannot govern Afghanistan like you govern Europe. So stop trying to make us use your recipes because they don't work here. You have your own system. We don't tell you that you shouldn't have a monarchy. This has been proven by all of you and by all independent sources. El Salvador was turned from the most dangerous place in the world to the safest in the Western Hemisphere. And nobody in the world has ever done it before, so fast and so clean like we have done it here.
Now, I'm not much of a conspiracy theory, but his government's approach raised the eyebrows amongst traditional allies. If Bukele's leadership strayed too far away from the Western democracy, El Salvador could potentially get sanctioned from the West, much like the measures imposed on Russia. Bukele knew that such sanctions could devastate El Salvador's economy. That's when he made another bold move. In September 2021, Bukele made El Salvador the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender.
I will send to Congress a bill that will make Bitcoin a legal tender in El Salvador. In the short term, this will generate jobs and help provide financial inclusion to thousands outside the formal economy.
This decision was more than just an economic experiment. It was a strategic move to safeguard El Salvador's financial future.
70% of El Salvador's inhabitants don't have a bank account. Low-income groups in particular rely on family members working abroad to send money home. This often involves significant fees and time. Bitcoin transfers can be done inside a few minutes and inexpensively.
By embracing a decentralized currency like Bitcoin, El Salvador could reduce its dependency on traditional financial systems, which are often controlled by the very nations that might impose sanctions. Bitcoin offered a way to bypass these systems, giving El Salvador a level of economic sovereignty it had never had before.
Then finally, at a pupuseria,
oh, there we go. Okay, this is the best transaction we've had so far.
An exchange of digital currency for a plate of El Salvador cuisine.
The adoption of Bitcoin has had mixed results so far. While some Salvadorians have embraced it, particularly small business owners, others have been slower to adopt the new currency, saying it's too volatile to be a currency. However, the larger impact of Bitcoin goes beyond the day-to-day transactions. It has positioned El Salvador as a global leader in the Bitcoin adaptation, attracting investments, tourism, and international attention. Nayib Bukele's vision for El Salvador extends beyond simply adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. One of his most ambitious projects is the creation of Bitcoin City, a futuristic, tax-free, Bitcoin-powered city designed to attract global investment and innovation.
When Alexander the Great was conquering the world, they established 20 Alexanders all over the empire. And the idea behind it was these Alexanders be like the beacons of hope for the rest of the world, that all of the world could be like that. So I thought, if you want Bitcoin to spread all over the world, we should build some Alexandrias, right? So I thought, well, we should build the first Alexandria here in El Salvador. So actually, what I was going to present to you, Bitcoin City.
Bitcoin City is planned to be built near the base of the Conchagua volcano on the southern east coast of El Salvador. The location is not just scenic, it's also strategic.
To entice potential investors, the city will also be a tax haven, meaning that there will be no income, property, procurement, and city taxes that will be collected from its residents and businesses. The only tax that will be in place in Bitcoin City will be VAT, which will then be used for the payment of bonds and the maintenance of the city.
The geothermal energy from the volcano will power the entire city, including its Bitcoin mining operations. Geothermal is using heat from deep within the ground and converting it into electricity. This is not just a theoretical plan. El Salvador had already begun experimenting with this concept using another volcano. El Salvador's government has already launched a successful experiment in harnessing volcanic geothermal energy to power Bitcoin mining. Near the Tecapa volcano, the country's state-owned company, La Geo, operates a Bitcoin mining facility that is entirely powered by volcanic energy. This experiment has demonstrated that it is possible to sustainably mine Bitcoin using renewable energy resources. Nayib Bukele's leadership has transformed El Salvador from a country on the brink of collapse to the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. His willingness to stray away from the conventional wisdom of global powers and chart a new course for his country has made him both a hero and a controversial figure of this world stage. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. praised Bukele's leadership, stating that Bitcoin has helped grow El Salvador's economy.
President Bukele is the most popular president in El Salvador's history. And with Bitcoin's help, he has turned the country around. Bitcoin helped him grow the economy and reduce crime. The U.S. should want to take a page from President Bukele's playbook and learn some of the lessons that he has to teach us about Bitcoin.
For some, Bukele's vision offers a blueprint for how nations could break free from crime and from the control of traditional financial systems. As El Salvador continues to navigate its future, the lessons learned from Bukele's bold decisions, whether in security or economic policy, could reshape the way we think about national sovereignty and the role of emerging technologies in our lives. Watch this video next to see how a dying company was revived through an unconventional move, one that transformed it into a market leader in the Bitcoin space.